You look absolutely beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the True Life Podcast. I hope everybody's having a beautiful day. I hope the sun is shining. I hope the birds are singing. Hope the wind is at your back. I got an incredible show with an incredible guest for you today. Ladies and gentlemen, Jessica is not just a name. She is a signal flare in the night, one of the first brave souls to walk the path of the feet journey, a radical 9 month odyssey designed to free the human spirit from the grip of addiction. Offered by awake.net, this healing passage weaves together deep preparation, a medically supervised ibogaine treatment overseas, and the most crucial piece so often overlooked, long term aftercare and integration. Addiction is a thief that moves in silence. It steals time, love, potential, and presence. But ibogaine, a sacred plant medicine revered by generations, is a force of nature capable of interrupting addiction in a single journey. It is not a cure all, but it is a door, one that swings open with courage most will never know. And Jessica, she isn't just knocking on the door, she's already stepped through it. Every feat candidate must make the first move toward their own transformation by contributing 2000 of their own money. It's not charity, this is partnership in the sacred. Jessica has already sown her own seeds of healing, placing her faith, her resources, and her future on the line. But the full cost of treatment is still out of reach. Ibogaine is not available in the United States and therefore not covered by insurance. And so the bridge to healing remains unfinished unless we help her build it. Awake.net's mission, 10,000 rebirths, is a clarion call to humanity to end addiction one ibogaine treatment at a time. Your donation is not just money, it is oxygen to a drowning soul. It is light to someone lost in the dark. It is a lifeline wrapped in love and action. Every dollar you give is 100% tax deductible, but more importantly, every dollar is a vote, not just for Jessica's freedom, but for a world where we rise together, where we remember that pain shared is pain halved, and healing shared is healing multiplied. She's done her part. Now it's our turn. Give generously, give boldly, and let this be your rebirth too. Jessica Slayton, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I don't think I could have explained any of that better myself. So,
Well, you've been on an incredible journey, and I'm so stoked to talk to you today. You know, you and I got to talk a little bit briefly at in Denver at the Psychedelic Science Iboga Saves conference out there, and I
yes,
was I was really moved by everything, all the cool speakers there, and just learning about ibogaine, and it's been an incredible
absolutely.
journey.
Yeah, a lot of good information.
Yeah, absolutely. When did let me just start with ibogaine, Jessica. What For those that know about ibogaine and its healing powers, we're aware of it, but maybe you could talk a little bit about what brought you to ibogaine.
Yeah, so excuse me. I believe I was on TikTok, I think actually, and I was just scrolling through stuff and I saw a video about Ibogaine and how it, resets, all your dopamine,
Yeah.
serotonin receptors and how it kind of rewires your brain and sets up new neural pathways. And in the past, other treatment options that I'd tried, like, Suboxone, methadone, it not only was it just substituting one drug for another, but it never fixed that, that depletion of all those, chemicals in our brain.
Yeah.
So when I heard about this, I was like, oh my God, it's like exactly the key that's been missing. And I did more research into it. And the more research I did, I was just like, it just fell in love with it more and more. But
Yeah.
then I found out how expensive it was. And I was like, I got to figure something out because this is like the key, And luckily, I found Lakshmi and her amazing program that she's just starting. So I think I was the second one to sign up. The first person didn't really follow through, so I'm now the first person going through with it. So couldn't be more
Yeah.
stoked.
Yeah, me too. You know, it's such a broad term when we think about healing and addiction, and I just kind of wanted to start maybe at the beginning, like, what does healing mean to you? Not just as an idea, but as something you felt. Like, what does healing mean?
Well, I mean, there's all different kinds of healing, physically, mentally, spiritually. For me personally, healing would be healing my mind, like I said, those, neurotransmitters and all that. But the other beautiful thing, excuse me, I can't talk today. The other beautiful thing about ibogaine is the hallucinogenic part of it makes you dive into your subconscious more so than other hallucinogens do. So you really kind of heal the core, get at the core of your, whether it's PTSD, whether it's addiction, you really get at the core issues. So not only does ibogaine heal, your brain and kind of reset you back to what it was before you were ever addicted, but it also heals the soul part of it, where you really get deep down. Because I'm like a really intellectual person, my mom's a psychologist, so I can always like therapize myself, but I'm really interested to see what my soul, has to say.
Yeah, I think it's a critical point. So often
Mhm,
we deal with symptoms. Like so often it's like, okay, if we can cure this symptom, then you'll be better. But the truth is, like you have to cure your soul. Like you have to
mhm,
have that spiritual component and that real understanding of like why, like what is
mhm.
going on and moving forward there.
Yeah,
Can
if
you
you don't
tell?
fix if you don't fix that, then it's
Yeah.
it's not going to be fixed.
Yeah. And it seems like so much of the modern medical system treats symptoms instead of treating like the real underlying causes of it, which
Don't
brings
get me
me.
started on the current medical system.
Have
Ooh,
you been through like lots of other treatments before and like had a history with with the medical system?
yeah, I've been through several treatment centers, and I feel like, they just, like I said, kind of replace one addiction for substitute, one for another. So you're still physically dependent on something from the pharmacy, which I'm sure they is part of their goal. But also, the 12-step program. It's a great program. I'm not knocking it by any means. It saves so many people's lives. But at the same time, I believe that, everybody's different and you can't shove everybody through this one, you can't, we're all different shapes and sizes and you can't try to fit everybody through a one round hole, you know what I mean? And and it's, I think it's kind of horrible to tell people that if they don't do it that way that they'll never have a chance, and that's the only way, but um yeah, so that's kind of been my my take from the traditional, rehab systems. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that they don't help, you know, probably millions of people, and save millions of lives, but you can't. Everybody's different, and not everybody is gonna, that system isn't gonna work for everybody.
Yeah, it's so well said. And it both you and I have talked to so many people that have been through that system. And you had mentioned that sometimes it's trading one addiction for another addiction. You
Right,
know,
right.
it's interesting to think about it from that aspect,
Whether they're addicted to the Suboxone, whether they're addicted to
right?
meetings, whether it's something, always trying to fill the hole.
Yeah, it's so true. Well, can you tell us about the moment you knew something had to change?
The moment I knew something had to change. So, I had, I guess it's about a year ago now. I had lost a job and I decided to try to withdraw, withdraw, from opiates, on my own. And I had some Suboxone, and the lady that I talked to didn't give me the right advice, and I wound up going into precipitated withdrawals, and it was just a horrible experience. I just basically went right back, to using again, and but around that time, I'm just like, not so much do I want to get my life back. I want to get a life, because I've been
Yeah.
doing this so long. I feel like I haven't even started, my life, my own life, and some time passed, and then I found out about the ibogaine thing, and I was like, this is it, and this is the first time in my entire life ever, 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 ever that I, on my own free will, without any, pushing or, consequences if I don't, have chosen and sought out, treatment for myself.
Yeah. First off, that's Congratulations on that. That's super awesome. I think so much
Thank
of the healing comes from like the seeking. I think so much of the healing your own soul or finding the true path to becoming the best version of yourself
you.
comes from that seeking. Like you have to hit like a certain point where you're like, you know what? This is it. This is the milestone I'm going through. It's
Hmm.
interesting to get to that point. And I think it's necessary. Do you think it's necessary, like the whole seeking part of it?
The whole seeking as far as
Seeking as far as like finding ibogaine, finding Lakshmi, going through all the trials and tribulations, like going through the Suboxone, like this doesn't work, or having some medical professionals give you like a label and telling you this or that, like going through that whole process is something that's necessary to be where you are now.
for myself, yeah. I mean, because and again, everybody's different,
Right.
but
Of
for
course.
me, I had to try all the other ways and realize that it didn't work for me. And I'm a firm believer in everything happening for a reason.
Yeah.
Things happen, when they're supposed to happen, not when we want them to happen. And so I feel like I had to go through all those things to, learn different lessons and, figure out what was right, for me. And maybe it wasn't the time, for me to do ibogaine back then. And I feel like now I'm in a place where I'm just so grateful
Yeah,
that
absolutely. What, a lot of people, I think they misunderstand addiction for weakness. But I think it takes incredible strength to survive it. What's something about your journey that people wouldn't expect?
um well so first of all, the weakness and strength thing,
Yeah,
I can see it from both sides because,
yeah,
in a sense, it is, an inability to say no to something that you shouldn't be doing. But at the same sense, the strength that some addicts, have to go through what they go through, it's both, So,
yeah,
I don't feel like they're weak or they're strengthful. I feel like it's both. You know what I mean? And, as far as me and my story, so, I was in a car accident when I was 16 and I broke both my legs, my jaw, messed my back up pretty good. And, that was around the time that the whole pill mill in Florida thing was happening. So
yeah,
I just, had been on some form of opiates ever since. And, I used to use that as an excuse, you know what I mean? Like, I'm in pain, I can't handle it without it, and I finally gotten, past that and realized that, I was just using it as an excuse and, um, it's time to fix the real problem.
yeah. How long have
And
you been? I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, no, I was just gonna say another thing that you wouldn't, I guess you could say that you wouldn't expect is that I'm a very high functioning addict. I've always worked, always held down jobs, but at the same time, I've been through, spouts of homelessness. And, you can grow up in a good family, and have, a great childhood and still go through these things but bounce back.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about all the trials and tribulations. I know that the internal dialogue, sometimes for me, like the internal dialogue I have is so rough on myself. You go through these phases where like you just say all these things about yourself and pretty soon you start living that life.
Mm,
You ruin relationships sometimes because of like your inner self dialogue. What can you
sure.
tell us a little bit about like, or is that something that happens to you? Like, do you have like an inner dialogue that maybe is a little bit too rough on yourself, or what's your inner dialogue like?
Sure. So a part that I just realized I left out of my of the story a little earlier was when I tried to detox myself, and then went through precipitated withdrawals. After Right after that, I had this kind of like, you know, um like a realization, I just, because majority of my life I had been like majorly depressed, like
Okay.
suicidal, just not suicidal, but just didn't want to be here, very depressed most of my
Yeah.
life. And after the precipitated withdrawal thing, I was just watching some show. It's called I Survived Beyond and Back, and it's about people that died and come back from like that. And
Yeah.
it just made me go on this search of what is reality, and what's it made of, and what's the point. And I kind of went down that rabbit hole.
Mm.
And ever since I realized how what this reality is and how it works, and I haven't been depressed at all since. And any inner dialogue, what like when I get frustrated with something or I don't know what to do, I just like kind of try to step outside of myself and look down on yourself and say, what advice would you give that person,
I love that. It's like the inner observer. Like when you can
Yeah.
see yourself in like a third person, it takes
Yep.
away so much of like the shame or the guilt or all these things that we use to beat ourselves up in so many ways.
Mhm.
What about like the spirituality component, Jessica? When I hear about ibogaine, and I've never done it, but I hear so many people talk about this spiritual component. Maybe we could start with like, do you have a background in spirituality, or were you raised a certain way, or what's your relationship with spirituality?
I wasn't raised a certain way. Both my parents were just kind of didn't go to church, or I think my mom was a Buddhist for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I had some general, like, I believe that, well, I had some general when I was younger, like energy is never created or destroyed. So I know we go
Yeah.
somewhere after we die, but that was about it. And but since I, did my dive into the rabbit hole of, what reality is and what it's made of, um I realized that, there 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 isn't like God or whatever you want to call it, source, all that is, it's not something out there, you know what I mean? It's us, it's this table, it's this microphone, it's this blade of grass, it's called source and all that is, because it literally is all that is. We are, made from, we are God, everything is. There's nothing else to be made from. So, it's really opened up my spirituality in that sense, that I've realized that, we're all source,
Yeah, it's a great point. Like addiction is such an interesting word. Like when I say the word addiction to you, what do you think of?
Oh God, this is probably pretty crude, but I think of a literal picture, of a Far Side Gallery, like addiction, But addiction to me, I guess for me personally, it's just been the chemical dependency part of it. Just not just being able to wake up in the morning and you feel okay.
Yeah.
It's just the constant, you know, um constant needing of, chemicals to, make yourself feel just okay. And
Yeah.
it's not a life, it's not a life.
Yeah. It's all around us, addiction. Like people, we're addicted to money, we're addicted to,
Oh, that
you know,
too, right.
right? It's everywhere. I see it in business too. Like if you want to buy a printer, you buy a printer and then you're addicted to like the ink. In some ways, like we have taken addiction and turned it into like a business model and turned it into a sales model. It's so crazy to me.
It's designed that way. It truly is, and it's crazy. They oh, like I said, don't get me started down that rabbit hole. But
Yeah,
it,
it's
we
interesting.
to a certain point, it's not everybody's fault like 100%, because we've just been raised, to we've just been raised in this environment where everything is like pre-programmed to like addict, be habit forming. And yeah, so
Yeah. Are you still like what do you use now? Do you still use certain chemicals now?
Yes, so I don't even wanna say opiates anymore because they're
Okay.
really not. Everything is fentanyl now, everything is. So, fentanyl, I kinda switched from, the pain medicine when I was younger, and then they stopped having all the doctors prescribing it, so everything kinda switched into fentanyl, so now that's what everybody, including myself, is dependent on, and, also, meth, I've never been a huge, like, upper,
Right.
kind of person, but, I just started doing it and, for energy basically, to
Yeah.
work 2 jobs and this and that, and then after doing that for not very long, you wake up in the morning and you don't have it, and you literally can't get out of bed, so it kinda grew into something where it's like you can't function without it also, so.
Yeah. How do you source it? Like it seems like it's pretty tricky to source or whatever. Like how do you get it?
Just from people, I grew up in this area, so I've been here a long time, and, yeah, you just meet just get introduced to new people, and hopefully they're not giving you garbage that you're spending hundreds of dollars on, but,
Right.
it's very it's stressful just trying to making sure that you have what you need not to be deathly sick.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it it seems like that would take up a large part of just getting your day started or getting through your day. At some point in time, the addiction becomes like life serving. Like you have to find it, you gotta source it, you gotta get the money to get it.
Right.
It seems like it would take a large part of the day or a large part of your cognitive ability just to get it.
Right. But and a lot of people have to do that for
Yeah.
sure. I've been fortunate that like I said, I've always had a job so I can kind of get larger amounts at a time, and then I don't have to worry about it for a couple days, but most people, yes, spend their day, just figuring out how they're gonna do whatever they're gonna do, but luckily I've said, I've been lucky enough to be a hard worker my whole life, so I've, always had a paycheck coming in, but of course, every single cent of that goes towards, towards not being sick and feeding the addiction.
Yeah. Man. Jessica,
It's
what
it's
is it?
it's mind-blowing sometimes, like, I looked at how much I made, last year and realizing how much of that just went to, right down the drain. It's pretty shocking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to see it from that angle. What
Mhm.
about relationships, Jessica? It seems like it would be hard to maintain relationships with people you love.
Um, it definitely has taken a toll, on family, of course.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, they didn't know that I was using anymore, and then I, it was just a lot of, lying about using, or and since this last time when I went through the precipitated withdrawals and all that, and found out about the ibogaine, this is the first time that I've really been honest with my family, about that I am using, and it's because I physically I can't stop, and but I found a solution.
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. It's the solution I think is it's amazing. What
It really is.
have you spent some time thinking about what it will be like? Like what is Jessica going to be like when she's not addicted?
Yeah, I can. I mean, I can picture myself like I definitely want a career of some sort because I've since I was 13 I've always worked in restaurants, and
Right?
don't get me wrong, I love it, but it's not a career, it's not you're not going to get any kind of, pension or salary pay or, anything like that from working in restaurants. So, and I really enjoy helping people. I love psychology. I love helping people. So I really want to maybe possibly go back to school and figure out a way to combine those interests and make a career for myself and help other people at the same time.
Yeah, I think you'd be great at it. You know, one thing about people that have dealt with addiction or have family members that deal with addiction, but primarily someone I think who is in addiction, I think that they're forced to see the world in a way that most people don't. And like that's where on some level I think it's heroic to go through this process. Is you have seen and faced things that most people never will. Just battling with addiction forces you to really dig down deep and see the world as it is instead of the way you want it to be on some level. I think it
Right.
gives you a unique perspective. Most people they don't have to deal with the the very difficult thing that is addiction on some level.
Sure.
What do you think addiction has taught you that maybe most people have never been through?
Um, Let me see that most people have never been through. I think the biggest thing that I would say is that just because people use it doesn't mean that they're a lost cause or not a very intelligent, person themselves. I think, people see an addict and they think of just like this, homeless person, pouring themselves out,
Yeah,
and it's some of the people that I've met, through, addiction have been some of the greatest people I've ever met. Granted, of course, there are the other type, but I would say just don't group everybody into one, box. And hopefully here soon we'll have more options available for treatment that will help, everybody, and not just, the people that fit through that 12-step, Suboxone hole.
yeah, yeah. I think the labels sometimes, Jessica, like people labeling you an addict or labeling you this, like there's so much stigma that comes with it. And then if you
Sure.
go into the medical system, you're given this label, and sometimes those labels can be just as debilitating as the drug itself. Like, oh, you're an addict. And once you start thinking that, it becomes very difficult for you to see yourself in another way. Do you ever get the feeling like the label that's put on you as an addict stifles you from moving forward?
Oh, well, yeah, to a certain degree, to a fairly large degree.
Yeah.
Especially like if like I went to have a procedure done a little while ago, get like some teeth pulled, and the doctor gave me a prescription for, like Tylenol number 3 or something like that, and I went to the pharmacy to get it filled, and they were like, "Oh, we see that you've taken buprenorphine, which is Suboxone, in the past, so we can't give you this medicine." It's like they're labeling you an addict, and they won't, give you medicine that you need at that time.
Yeah.
That's just one example.
Yeah, it's almost like once you're in the system this way, you're kind of almost trapped from getting out of it.
Right, right, absolutely. Stigmatized to the max, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt that the words we use sometimes I think can be so debilitating in getting better and finding a path forward. It's
Right.
so yeah.
They tell, in AA and NA, they tell yourself, you are an addict, you'll always be an addict, and that's how you're supposed to address yourself, in the meeting. Hi, my name is this and that, I'm an addict. It's like I feel like if you're not, especially if you're not using anymore, why would
Yeah.
you continue to call yourself that? It's like a mentality. Words have power,
Yes.
and they, constantly telling yourself that and telling other people that, it's just doing nothing but perpetuating it. And um, yeah, it's not the right way to go about it.
Yeah. Like that's the problem I think so many people have with the medical system. And don't get me wrong, like you said, there's some great professionals out there that
Right.
really want to help. But the system itself, it seems to me, traps people in addiction. Okay,
They want
you're
they,
yeah,
they want you to be addicted to their, Suboxone medication and methadone medication so that they can make money off of it, and that's the sad truth, you know.
Yeah,
And
you're an
and
addict for.
poor doctors, they're trying to help, but, most of what they've been taught is, from a medical program, a medical, curriculum that was rewritten by, I think it was JP Morgan. Once he found out that they could make petroleum-based medications, he, rewrote the whole, medical, medical schooling textbooks, and they just want you on their, petroleum-based medicines, and it's instead of actually, looking into what would what would actually help people, you know.
Yeah, that's one thing I really love about the FEET program that you're in right now and
Mhm.
these other programs that are out there is like instead of coming in as like a patient or an addict or someone with a syndrome, you're coming in as a human being. You're like, hey, here I am as a human being. And instead of it being an end, it's sort of a rebirth. It's sort of a rite
Absolutely.
of passage. Like, okay, like you've made it. You've crawled through the fires. You're crawling. You're bloody. You're scarred, but you're here right now. And it's like, okay, like congratulations, you made it. Like that seems so much more empowering to me than this old adage of you're this or you're that. What do you
It
think?
absolutely is, and that's just one of, the many, many, many things that I love about Lakshmi and what she's doing and the whole thing. It's just she's she's really an amazing person, and what she's put together, I think, when once it gets out there and we get more people, doing it, that it could save so many people
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
positive way. In a
Yeah.
positive, non-judgmental, non-labeling way.
Yeah, again with these with the judgments and the language, like it's so difficult to get out of a box where people put you in. When you come in, even when you see a doctor sometimes like you're the patient and there's this authority figure over you, it can be so like
Demeaning,
overwhelming. Yeah,
demeaning, for sure.
yeah. It's it just being trapped in that system, it seems like there's no way out sometimes. But you and I have been talking a little bit about ibogaine. What what do you think is going to happen during the ibogaine treatment? I'm like, you've done all the research on it. Excuse me. You've talked to practitioners. You've talked to other people that have been through ibogaine. What do you think happens during an ibogaine treatment?
So from my understanding is, the first week, I they the first week they switch you from, because you can't have fentanyl in your system, when you take the ibogaine. So for the first week you're there, I'll be detoxing. They switch you over to like a medical grade, morphine, which is, safer, and then they wean you down from that, over the week, um, just to get all the fentanyl out of your system and, get you down on the lowest amount of, the morphine possible. And then they start, with the ibogaine. And there's some places that do the ibogaine in like one or two big flood doses,
Right.
which I think, in just my personal opinion, I think is more helpful for people that are doing it for like PTSD related issues. You know what
Right.
I mean? But I feel like people that are doing it for addiction, issues, there's a way where they kind of slowly build it up in your system, like give you a larger dose one day, and then a cool down, excuse me, a large dose one day, and then a cool down day, and then like a medium dose the next day, a cool down day, and then a larger dose again the next day. It kind of builds it up in your system a little bit more, and so that it'll not only, the I think it builds it up in your system so that the effects of, the no cravings and, all that will last longer once you leave. And I think that's the best way to go for people that are going there for addiction, issues.
Yeah, I agree. I was talking to a friend of ours, Anders Beatty, and he was
Yes,
telling me,
yours is great.
yeah, he's such a cool guy. Who are
Yeah.
you going to go to see and do ibogaine with?
I chose a place called Anselmo, and
Mm,
I can't remember the name of the town. It's by Tijuana, and they uh they do the, kind of slowly build it up in your system thing, which I really like that idea. So it's a great place. Thomas,
Leonard?
yes, thank you. Thomas Leonard, he's the one that runs it, and he's a really great guy as well.
You know, there's some really interesting components about ibogaine, and I'm just talking anecdotally here, but from what I have heard, it shows you a lot of the images, a lot of the situations, a lot of the actual things that have happened in a hallucinate. I might be using it the wrong way, but it actually shows you, and you are allowed to revisit the very painful scenes that may have or may be the underlying cause for addiction. Anders talked about seeing his grandparents and feeling the shame and the guilt. I've spoken to other people who were molested and they got to replay that whole scene in front of them as if it was for real and
Hmm.
see it in a way. And that's where the neuroplasticity comes in. I
Yes.
guess I guess this is kind of a two-part question. The first part question is, are you ready for that? Number one. And the second part is what are the traumatic events that it's going to show you, you think?
Um, am I ready for it? Yes, 100%. And because I think I said earlier, I've always kind of like therapized myself, but so
Sure.
I'm really interested to see what my subconscious has to say about it,
Yeah.
and what was the second part? What do I think I'm
Like
gonna?
what events do you think are going is going to be shown to you in that
Um,
dream?
there's a few, some people really close to me passed away, and I think that might come up, but I'm not sure because I really,
Yeah.
since I've, did all my research about how reality works, that hasn't really bothered me as much because I know they're around us all the time, and we can talk to
Yeah.
them whenever we want. I'm just really, again, I'm just really curious to see, I'm looking forward to figuring out what my subconscious has to say and what my subconscious is gonna make me deal with, help me deal with,
Yeah,
help
totally.
and make me deal with.
Was there like a certain can you remember a certain set of events, or was there a traumatic event, or maybe a bunch of different events that sort of led you to addiction? Was there, I know for me, when I was younger, I was molested as a kid. I remember my son died. These were like incredible traumatic events that were very
Sure,
difficult to relive. Were
of
there some
course.
events like that for you that led you to addiction or that you can recall?
You know, I, I had a great, great childhood. You know, I always, I guess, just kind of had the party, mentality, wanted to
Yeah.
be, the party person, and then the car accident, that got me, started on the pain pills. But honestly, most of the traumatic things that have happened to me were results from
Yeah.
sorry, were resulting from my addiction. So it wasn't something that happened to me, that traumatic happened to me that started it. I had already started it, and then more traumatic things started happening, and just kind of snowballed.
Yeah. Kind of build on top of each other. And once you start going in that direction,
Yep.
you
Yep.
look back and you're like, oh man, it's so far away.
Yeah, and still people are just this fentanyl is horrible. Narcan doesn't work on it, and so I mean, my knuckles are raw because I was having to give somebody a sternum rub the other night so hard to wake them up. It's just because the Narcan doesn't work on people, so it's really horrible stuff.
Well, I don't even know, like, what is Narcan? Is that like a something that supplements the
Oh,
addiction,
sure.
or what is it?
Yeah, so Narcan is like it's a they give them out at certain clinics and stuff. It's like a little nasal spray that when somebody's overdosing, you just spray it into their nostril, and it's supposed to wake them up. It's supposed to
Yeah.
counterbalance, counterbalance the opioid receptors in your brain. But again, it doesn't work so well for fentanyl because fentanyl isn't an opioid technically.
Mm,
So you know, yeah, it it works sometimes, but you just, you have to give them like a lot of, like maybe 2 or 3 of them. But
Yeah.
honestly, for when somebody overdoses, the best thing is again the sternum rub, and I hate to say it, but ice on ice on the head and ice on the private parts always wakes people up.
Man, it's an interesting thing. What? How did you flag? That was a friend of yours that you had to give Narcan to? Like, what was it?
Oh, it was my friend's boyfriend. Yeah,
Mm.
he doesn't really. Excuse me. He doesn't do it that often at all. So he just took one hit and he was out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But luckily, me and her and I, we know exactly what to do. So we, got him up and not too long, but still get your heart racing for a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. What an intense situation that must have been.
Well, he made it. He's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Aside from his chest and my knuckles being a little raw, we're both okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it would be not only obviously it would be incredible to go through ibogaine and come out the other side, but I think it would also be really inspiring for like your friend and your friend's boyfriend to see the path that you've taken.
Yeah. Even the friends that I have that use, they're like extremely happy for me, and
Yeah.
they are just they're fascinated by it. They're like, well, how can I get in this
Yeah.
scholarship program? What can I do?
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll get, a lot more people on board.
Yeah, it's interesting to think how much we are the medicine. Like getting like the path that you're on right now becomes the light for other people. Like, oh my God, you see Jessica? She used to be here hanging out with us, but look at her now. Now she's back in school. Now she's got the career. Like that's an incredible pathway that I think not enough people talk about is the inspiration that you can become for other people. Like now you become a guide. You become the person that people look up to, and then you become the person that can help them.
Right, and I've told Lakshmi anything I could do to help get this out there, to be the, make me the poster child, whatever, just, whatever will help to get more people aware of it and, spread the message.
Yeah. So it's from what I've heard about ibogaine, it has an incredible rate of success. I think like
Yeah,
88%
89, I
non-recidivism.
believe.
Whoa, 89.
It's up there. I don't quote me on that, but it is up there.
What's the aftercare look like? A lot of people are under the impression, I think falsely, that you just do it once and you're better forever. But I think there's aftercare involved too. There's like integration and stuff like that. Maybe you could tell us a little bit what that looks like.
Correct, sure. So, I think I said earlier, so for people that are doing it for PTSD, I think that's more of the like one flood dose, possibly two, if
Right.
you need it.
Right.
But as far as for the addiction goes, there's not only, a post treatment, but there's a pre, treatment setup. So, and that's why I was speaking with Anders. He gets you kind of set up to like what what do you want to get out of it, what do you want to focus on, so he sets you up for the pre, treatment part of it. Then you go in and like I said, they switch you over, to the medical grade, morphine to get you off the fentanyl. And then like I said, a build up in the system of, bigger doses than smaller doses, couple days of bigger doses and smaller doses. And then after that, Lakshmi has a great post treatment program, and I think it's about 9 months altogether. That you're getting, and she's got Zoom meetings that we go to each week, and just all kinds of support, and a plan is set up, for every step of the way. Before you go, during, and then what afterwards. So they really spec you up.
Yeah. It seems to me like the cravings,
Oh,
the
sorry.
triggers. Yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry, I forgot. Also, when necessary, they'll send you home with like a they'll send you home with like maybe like a small dose or two for like when that 3-month mark hits because, it's the ibogaine is supposed to stay in your system for around 3 months. So if you need it, they'll send you home with like, a little small dose, for when that 3-month mark hits so that, the cravings don't just come flushing back and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's we were talking to Dr. Deborah Mash, who you got to talk to at Iboga Saves, and
Yeah.
they were talking about the microdosing afterwards on some
Yeah.
level. I guess it really helps to alleviate not only the cravings, but some of the emotional triggers or the situational triggers that can rise
Sure.
up afterwards.
Sure. And it's you just your brain um the neural pathways, they're used to going a certain way, and you're just retraining them to not to not go back to the old patterns.
Yeah. Yeah, the word rebirth comes to mind for me.
Yeah.
It's those new neural pathways. It's that
it,
relearning and that new stuff. When I say rebirth, what do you think about?
it, I think that's a great way to describe it. And rewiring, your
Yeah.
brain and resetting it to like it was before you were ever addicted to anything. I mean, there's nothing else. Sorry, there's nothing else in the world that we know of yet that does that. So it's really, really a miracle plant.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. It's interesting to me to think that the the remedy to pills is a plant.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Plant medicine was around way before, the petroleum-based ones. So,
Right. Jessica, if someone was listening has never struggled with addiction, what would you want them to truly understand about it?
huh, let me see, that didn't understand addiction. I would say that it is really hard for somebody who's never been addicted to anything to see it, to understand it, period. But I guess I would say just imagine, like I was saying earlier, just waking up in the morning and not feeling, okay. You know, um, try to I guess put yourself in their shoes a little bit and just try to have empathy and not forcing people to, because you can't force people to get treatment, trust me. It makes them resent it, or it just doesn't work, period. But just being encouraging, not not so much enabling, like giving them money, and whatnot, but just encouraging to, when they might be ready to change, you're there for them. And yeah, just try to set boundaries, but see things from their point of view. And yeah, I think that's about covers it.
Yeah. I think something different about the FEET program and the program that you're in right now is that you have to raise a large part of your own money. Like, and you couldn't even get started unless you raised your own money. So like
Right.
you're putting yourself out there. Like you're showing everyone like, look, I'm doing everything I can to become the best version of myself. Do you
Yes.
think that
Sorry, go ahead.
do you think that that plays a large part in not only getting treatment but helping the treatment work?
I do, because it holds you accountable.
Yeah.
It shows that you're not just gonna um just gonna take advantage of, an amazing opportunity. It shows that you're willing to jump through the hoops that you need to jump through, to get this amazing gift, and as Lakshmi likes to say, it puts skin in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. And I think I think it's a revolutionary because I think we can call on people to crowdfund something, to be part of success. Like so often, people will go down and buy like a coffee for $5 or $10. But why not take that $5 or that $10 or that $20 or that $100 and put it towards making all of us better? And I think when one of us gets better, like we all get better. I think that's the way the world gets better.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're all connected. We're all one, and helping. My whole life, I've always treated people how I would want to be treated, and that's the key, because when, like you said it the best, when you're helping somebody else, you are helping yourself. There's no better feeling in the world than, knowing that you've, made a difference or helped somebody or even just put a smile on their face. It's just as a collective, it makes us all, it raises all of our vibrations and it makes us all better people.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier too. If someone listening right now has $20 or just has a little bit of money to give to the donations or the crowdfunding source, which is right up above, people can see it in the overlay right there. They can go down to the show notes and check it out. It
It's
not only
it's give.awake.net. Yeah.
give.awake.net. Give.awake.net. Ladies and gentlemen, give.awake.net. And it not only does it help you, but like we spoke earlier, everybody that you know that might be battling with this, they get to see you go through this program and they get to see you get better. So every dollar that somebody gives is really a
Helping to set
a
this
vote
program
for
up.
empathy. Yeah, a leg
Yeah.
up for everybody else. It's such an important program, and I hope everybody within the sound of my voice has the ability just to take a few moments instead of buying a coffee, just give to the donations. It's such a beautiful program, and there's so many incredible people involved in it, yourself included. Are we going to be able to see? Like we're talking now before the journey. Are we going to be able to see and see monitor the progress after the journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm willing to, they're also doing a documentary, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I'm willing to, be involved in that. And, yeah, absolutely. You see me before, during, after. I told her whatever I can do to help get this out there and, make it more well known and, be the first, positive success story that would, helping as many people as I possibly can, that would just be amazing while helping myself. That I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, you know?
Yeah, I do. I love it as a model for all of us to help every one of us. Like I think it's such a more humane and beautiful model that comes without the labels and it comes with a success story and it comes from individuals on the ground floor helping all of us to get better. Like
Mhm.
it stops that divide and gets us all to see each other as ourselves in so many ways.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I what what is it? What would it mean to you to know your healing was made possible by people who simply cared?
I mean, I'm just an unbelievable amount of gratitude to know that there's people out there that, still do care. And I know in this day and age, it seems like well, it seems like, people are caring less and less, but I think, it's not talked about a lot, but I think people are actually starting to care more and more. And I think that it's just, it's contagious. And I just, I couldn't be more grateful and to to have this opportunity. And I'm usually I'm used to being the one helping everybody else out, and to ask for help is a little awkward for me, but it just is just this. I can't even put into words how much I appreciate every cent, that goes to helping. And yeah, forever,
Yeah,
forever grateful.
yeah, me too. I feel like this is not just a chance to survive, but to begin again. How do you, Jessica, plan to pay this forward once you've made it through?
Well, like I said, the being kind of like I don't know about poster child, but helping Lakshmi's program get out there, the 10,000 rebirths. Telling, when I come back and, tell my friends about it, just people that I know, hopefully it inspires them. The documentary that they're doing, hopefully that inspires people. Um, yeah, I was just trying to, get the message out there and inspire, as many people as possible that this is an option and that it is out there and that it is possible.
Yeah,
and
it's
and that it
beautiful.
works.
And that it works. Like
Yes,
that's a huge
absolutely.
part of it. It's a huge part of it. I think we're on the cusp, Jessica, of real changes in society. And I'm
Yeah,
so grateful. I'm so grateful to get to see the people on the bottom, on the top, that are anywhere in life. Just give a helping hand to everybody out there. It's a really
absolutely.
beautiful time we live in. I'm
It
excited
is.
for it.
It is, and it's gonna get better.
Yeah, it is going to get better. Like you're already getting better. You're already taking so many courageous steps into becoming the very best version of yourself. I'm super excited to get to talk to you today. And is there
Same
anything
here.
else? Yeah, what is there anything else that we should have covered that we haven't covered? Anything else you want to say?
I don't know, you covered everything pretty well. I would just say, again, I would just cannot express how grateful I am for this amazing opportunity, and, I just can't wait to start my life and, help other people, get their lives started through this amazing, amazing planet, and this amazing program.
Well, I think we're doing it right now. I'm grateful for the conversation today. I'm thankful for the struggles that you've been through, and beyond all that, I'm grateful for the courage you have to share all your stories and put yourself out there and have the courage to ask for help. And I can't wait to see how the treatment goes and talk to you afterwards. And ladies and gentlemen, awake.net, Jessica, go down if you
Um,
have. Yeah.
give.awake.net. Yeah.
Yes. Give.awake.net. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have the ability to help out, your gratitude, your financial ability to give can change lives. And we're here today to be a testament to that. And Jessica, I'm grateful for everything you're doing. And Lakshmi, grateful for all the program, the feet program, give.awake.net. Go check it out. If you have, instead of buying a coffee today, give some money to Jessica and help the world be a little bit better. We need it more than ever. And ibogaine is an incredible treatment for people that have been struggling with addiction for such a long time to give them their life back. And
It
that's what we
really
got.
is.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
And thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to talking to you afterwards.
Yeah. Well, hang on briefly afterwards, but to everybody within the sound of my voice, thank you so much for today. And one
Same
more
here.
time, Jessica. One more time, Jessica. What was the site that they go to?
It's a give.awake.net.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we got for today. I hope you have a beautiful day. Hang on briefly afterwards, Jessica. To everybody else, thank you so much for your time. That's all we
Thank you
got.
guys.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right. Aloha.